Right, hello there ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's video. And today we're going to be having a look at this Xbox One. This one in particular is overheating. So this is the first time I've ever actually been inside an Xbox One games console before now. So this is an interesting one for me. I have stripped it down off camera. As I say, it is the first time I've been inside one. Anyway, they are really easy to open actually, so all the myths and fallacies you might have seen around the net regarding them being a bit awkward, providing you're careful and you look for the pitfalls, they're actually really easy, and there's not much to them, to be perfectly honest. They're very, very similar in construction to Xbox 360. If you've ever been in one of those, they're not a million miles different, and I actually quite like the construction of them. So anyway, I will film a teardown video of how to disassemble one of these, of course. Now I know myself how to get into them. I will happily do that for you. I'm happy to report that I've actually managed to get into this without breaking anything because, like I say, I don't know if it's just because over the years I've just managed to work out how to do these sort of things or what, I don't know. But I actually found it really quite straightforward. So anyway, this here is our Xbox One motherboard. I was tempted to call it a 360 then. But anyway, this particular machine is overheating and we're going to have a look at why. So it fires up, it comes on perfectly, it lasts for about half an hour and then it shuts itself down after it overheats, and then you can power it back on and it'll last sort of 10-15 minutes and it'll have to power off again, and then eventually that time just decreases, it gets hotter, and eventually the thing just packs up altogether and then refuses to turn on for a good couple of hours before you can restart the whole process again. So I've actually got the board out of this. It saves a bit of time on this video because it's not going to be a particularly long one. But I do just want to show you what to do with these. Now, the fan lead just plugs into that header there. That just lifts. I can speak today. Just lifts out. So it just unclips from that little socket there. And then what you can do is you can turn it over. And for anybody who is unaware or has not been in the back of one of these before, but who has been in the 360, will probably recognise this. Yes, the X clamps are back. Now, I know they get a bad press, and I know a lot of people don't like X clamps for reasons of misinformation that's been spread around the net, but believe me, boys and girls, the X clamps were not the cause of the red ring of death at all. They weren't. They really weren't. They were manufacturing defects. Unfortunately, the BGAs either failed or the solder connections underneath failed. The X clamps didn't bend anything. They didn't flex anything. So yes, they get a bit of a bad press, and I actually feel really rather sorry for them because people replaced them with bolt kits, and that is what actually knackered most of them. But anyway, that's the topic for a different video. But we're going to remove this. So to do it carefully, I think there are some X-clamp removal tools kicking around the net. So if you do have some of those from the old 360s, then feel free to use them here because they're the same. Otherwise, get a tiny little flat blade screwdriver and get it between the stud and the edge of the clamp here. And what you want to do is you're going straight at the front there, and I'll just try and get you a bit of zoom so you can see what I'm doing on this one. Let's try and explain this one a little bit more clearly. And so I put the screwdriver down the front. I move it just to the side. So you see where it sort of creases there, where the actual clamp bends down. Get your screwdriver in there, and then just pry it gently against the stud. So you don't want to go too far down. You can rest the blade of the driver on the actual bottom of the clamp there, so you're never actually touching the board. And what you'll find is by doing that you can gently lift it up and away from the stud, and you'll notice this one's just starting to come out of where the stud is, and you just keep going gently on it and eventually it'll pop like that. Really easy, you see. And then we're just going to rinse and repeat that on the clamp at the other side. So as I say, you're never actually making contact with the board. You don't need to make contact with the board. There you go, that's two. And then you can just shuffle the other side off usually. In this particular instance, of course, because we're on camera, it is making me look a muppet. And it would appear that this one's being a little bit more stubborn. That's fine. So this particular machine was opened before this. And they've actually broken the speaker connector on the front board. and we'll show you that in a second. That is going to need resoldering. There we go. So usually you can just get away with shuffling those with your fingers, but today it's been a little bit more awkward. So we're just going to lift that off. And you can see the heatsink there, lots of nice burnt in thermal paste there. Oh dear, that doesn't look too clever, does it? Look at that, lots of dried on thermal paste. It's very, very thin. You can see the top of the die through there. This has been overheating quite evidently. So what we're going to do is we're going to clean this down, and we're going to clean the old crap off there, and then we're going to repaste this with none other than some proper Arctic MX4, proper legit stuff there. That's what we're going to do. So in order to do that, there's two ways you can do it really. If you've got an old credit card or something of those nature, just use that. Me, I haven't today, so I'm just going to use a bit of kitchen roll and just try and get the majority of this off. In fact, no, I'm not. I'm not going to be lazy. I'm going to stop this for now, and I am going to go get my credit card type squeegee thing, and I will come back. So bear with me a second, guys, and we'll jump this, and I'll see you in a sec. Right, okay, we're back, and I have managed to go away and get my half a credit card type thing. So we're just going to move the board out of the way for now, and I hope the audio on this video is better than it has been recently. This is the first one I'm recording with the new microphone setup I'm trialing here. So how easy this is going to be to stitch together at the end of the process, I'm not entirely sure, but hopefully it's not going to be too difficult. So we're just going to get a card, and we're just going to try and scrape it, and you can see it's it's putting up a bit of a fight. I'm going to go the other way. There we go, that's better. Let's flex this side. So we're just going to scrape along there. We want to get the biggest part of the crap off for now. There we go. So we're just going to get the biggest part of that. Okay. So as you can see there now, we've got the biggest part of the dried on horrible stuff off. Give it a bit of a rub over with a bit of kitchen roll or something like that. And then I actually use this stuff. It's really good. Casa Tim Clean. I've had this little bottle. Wow, I've had this little bottle about 5 or 6 years, and it's still going. It cost me a fiver from PC World all those years ago. About 2010 I bought this. Anyway, you want to give this a good rub over. Give it a good rub over. You can see there the colour of the the colour of the wipe we're using. Looks lovely. But anyway, we want to get that nice and clean. Get it nice and dry as well. And there you go. So that's nice now. That's looking a hell of a lot nicer, isn't it? So that's that out of the way. Now then, for anybody wondering, and you can see there's a fair old bit of dust and stuff in the top of the fan. The radiators don't look too bad, but there's a bit of dust in there, so we'll go give it a blowout. We will go give that a blowout shortly. I'll take that outside and do that. But now back to the board. And for those of you wondering how we're going to clean this off, to be honest, I'll tell you what, just using this microphone just as an aside, it's so nice not to have to shout at the microphone. But anyway, because even though I was shouting at it, it still didn't really seem to make much of a difference. So I'm going to try and move you down a little bit. Hopefully that's got you there. Oh, look at that. Not nice. So what I tend to try to do with these is, because all that is burnt on and it's really dry and it's horrible. So we're just going to get a tiny flat blade screwdriver, and I'm going to wrap it in a little piece of kitchen roll. So you can still get the pointy bit in and do some scraping, but you're not going to do any damage. And you can see there that it just lifts out. It just flakes off. Now do be careful that the bottom of the blade doesn't protrude through the bottom of the tissue, because obviously if it does, you can scratch the die, and if you do scratch the die, then obviously you are in a world of pain. But you can see here that this is being really stubborn. This is really not very nice stuff. Look at that. Any sort of thermal conductive properties this stuff had is long gone. So yeah, you can see it's not very pretty at all, this stuff. You just want to gently go around. Only gently, you don't want to go scraping anything. You shouldn't. This is pretty horrible stuff. But anyway, you can see there it's just flaking off. I'm just going to brush it onto the board for now, because what I will do is I will take this outside and give it a brush. Just get rid of all that. But yeah, you know, you just want to rinse and repeat. Just go steady at it, go slowly. You don't want to go too quickly. You don't want to go risking ruining things. Don't be tempted to push it a little bit harder if it's being stubborn, because that is how, you know, you're going to end up scraping something you wish you hadn't. I'm just going to go around the edges there now. You know, you don't need to get every last little bit with this. You know, you just need to get rid of the biggest part of it, really, because the rest we're going to get with the specialist Tim cleaner. Now, some people might use IPA or something like that to actually clean these things down with. I don't tend to like to use IPA because it tends to leave like a film behind with it, a bit of residue on it. Now, it might just be the particular IPA that I use that does that. You might actually have some that doesn't, but in my experience, that's what seems to happen with my stuff anyway, so I don't tend to like using it too much for cleaning this sort of stuff off, because obviously any residue on the top of that die there is just going to hinder the actual thermal paste from doing its job. So I'm just going to run the card over the top of there, and like I say, you don't want to get it particularly perfectly clean at this stage. You just want to get the biggest part of it off, being as gentle as you can. And like I say, just having the right tools there just helps you do that. So that bit of card there came in beautifully handy. So I'm just going to go outside now and I'm going to scrape, and I'm just going to brush this off. And then I'm going to get a Q-tip or a cotton bud or whatever it is that you like to call them. And I'm going to get a bit of the Tim cleaner on there. And I'm just going to go off and just get the excess in here and in here. And we're going to get all that off. I'm going to get it looking nice and shiny. Right, okay, so the process is now nice and clean and shiny. You can see there that we've got no crap left on that. So we need to go and apply some more of this. Now, what a lot of people do is they fall into the trap of applying too much of this stuff. And if you apply too much of it, it acts more like an insulator than it does a conductor. So you end up causing more heat build-up and more damage in there. So when I say you need a pea-sized drop of this, that is literally all you need. To some people, a pea-sized drop is to paint the top of this processor in this stuff, and believe me, less is more when it comes to thermal paste. So Arctic MX4, you just get the tube just above the die there and squeeze a tiny little drop into the centre. That is it there. I know you're probably looking at that and going, what, are you mad? But trust me, that is all you need on there. And as you can see, I've done about probably 7 or 8 machines with this, and that is how much the needle's moved. So that is literally all you need on there, no more than that. Any more than that, you've got too much, take it off. So you need to apply this heatsink to the back of there. As you can see, we've cleaned all that now, and you can see through the radiator it's nice and shiny. So line up the pegs with the holes on the board. Do be careful not to apply too much pressure when you do this, because if you do when you slip, there's lots of very nice delicate traces there that go to the ram blocks, which can be easily damaged. So you want to flip it over. You can see there now we've got the pins nicely through the holes. And then you want to get your X clamp back, and you want to move that, so you want to bend this back out into shape, because when you pry it, you can sometimes bend them out a little bit, and then you'll have fun getting them back on. So you just want to pry them so you've got a gentle bend. As you can see there, there's just a gentle curve upwards, and that's cool. That's all you want. Don't be tempted to bend them out any further, because like I say, you will have fun getting them back on, and it'll just apply excess pressure to the APU, which isn't required. So line them up on a couple of pins, and then they should just push. Now then, in my case, I've got lucky and it's gone on 3 sides. Sometimes you'll only get 2 that go on. So this 3rd side here, and then it's pretty much just a reversal of what you did to get them off. Try and get the blade down the back of the peg, and just gently pry over the top. And eventually you'll get the clamp to sit over the top of the peg, and there you are. So that's it, and then just check that the peg, so that the X clamp is sat over the peg. There's a little groove in each peg. Make sure it's sat on there, and it's sat in there properly, and it isn't tempted to come up. Those are all looking rather nice, and that's that. So once these are all back in, as you can see there, we have them all back in now. It's just a case of reassembling. Remember, of course, to plug your heatsink fan back in, like such. And that is ready to go back into your Xbox One.